Yet again ignored by most of the media, Israel is coming under attack from Gaza, from the terrorist regime in Gaza, Hamas. But the federal budget has revealed Labor is going to increase funding for Palestinian territories. Joining us now is the president of the Australian Jewish Association, David Adler. David, great to see you as always.
Thank you.
Israel has been under attack in the last week or so, a couple of weeks, from rockets in Gaza. This happened a few years ago. We talked about it yet again. Not a word, not a peep in the mainstream media. Penny Wong, some strange things going on there. Tell us about it. Tell us what is really going on in the Middle East.
Well, Rowan, unfortunately we're seeing an escalation in violence caused, I think, by a number of factors. The weakening of the US administration, which is very influential, is noticed by the jihadists. Palestinian Islamic Jihad is actually the entity which is firing the rockets. Now over 1,000 have been launched into Israel. And there seems to be a bit of a power struggle between the Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas. Islamic Jihad is often seen as a proxy for Iran and receives virtually unconditional support from Iran. But then there was a little incident which triggered it. A terrorist who was on a hunger strike in an Israeli jail died, and that was the excuse to launch the rockets. So it's been a terrible situation. There have been deaths in Gaza because the Islamic Jihad has a habit of using women and children as human shields, and despite Israel targeting the leaders with incredible precision, there is some collateral casualty. And just recently, I learnt that they've actually killed Arab Palestinians in Israel. There was a construction site, and it's not uncommon to have Arabs working on construction, and a rocket hit a construction site and killed an Arab Palestinian who had come from Gaza to work in Israel. They're killing their own, both in Gaza with misfired rockets as well as in Israel.
And let's just be clear to people that it's as if people in the eastern suburbs were firing rockets into Parramatta or something like that. The distances are incredibly close. And James?
Well, I want to ask you too, just more about the causes and also the media reaction to this, because if you look for media reports on this, every single headline says Palestinians killed by Israel, and way down the headline, way down the story, but there have been some rockets that have been fired. How concerned are you that, I've noticed, especially since those riots that we saw and demonstrations in Israel around the Supreme Court, that there has been a broader campaign to really delegitimize Israel and the Israeli government, more so than we have seen in the past. It seems like a real clear program to try and undermine the state of Israel. What is driving that, do you think?
Look, that's actually a complicated question, but your observations are 100% correct. And our ABC, or their ABC, is actually one of the great sinners in this country. It typically opens its coverage with saying Israel has attacked Gaza, and if you'd only seen the beginning of their coverage, you would assume that for no reason at all, Israel had decided now's a good time to be an aggressor against the Arab Palestinians, whereas the beginning should be over 100, because it was over 100 rockets before Israel did the first response, had been indiscriminately fired at Israeli citizens, and then there was a response. I actually think that some of the reasoning is quite deep and would want a difficult, more prolonged discussion. But if you want to undermine Western civilization, if you want to undermine Judeo-Christian values, Israel is where it all began.
Yes.
And undermining Israel, I actually think has a deep part to it.
Well, I think that's part of the reason why there is so much hostility from the left towards Israel, because of what you've just described. But Penny Wong, who has been fairly sensible as a foreign minister. She was tweeting like she was a Palestinian activist, but then the following day she seemed to sort of revise her position and have a bit more balance.
Look, Penny Wong has received compliments for Australia's foreign policy, but there is one notable exception, and the notable exception is the Middle East. It was disgraceful that Australia unrecognised the status of Jerusalem as the capital. Even the Biden administration, which is a bit hostile, hasn't gone that far. And Penny Wong did make a couple of comments on Twitter. Her first comment was simply to express concern over casualties caused by Israel in Gaza. And again, we have here no mention at all that Israel was under waves of rocket attack. It's just expressing concern about Israel's response. I suspect that she was actually hammered from within the Labor Party, because there are moderates within the Labor Party, a few, even though we see them as a bit of a tipping point at the moment. And within 24 hours, she put out another comment that actually acknowledged that Israel was responding to indiscriminate rocket fire, a more balanced comment. So something funny is going on in the Labor Party, and we are very concerned that...
And let's just remind viewers, long-time viewers will remember that it was thanks to David Adler's efforts and this show and the Spectator Australia and Pauline Hanson that the Liberal government removed $10 million of funding to which Australian taxpayer tax money, which was going, the fear was to terrorists within Palestine, Palestinian terrorists, but Penny Wong restored that $10 million and gave it back. So Australian taxpayers are sending money, arguably, which the fear is that it is being used to sponsor this sort of terror. Just quickly, David, before you go, what did you make of Marshall Langton's comments that if The Voice doesn't get ahead, there will be, quote, an intifada?
No, it wasn't The Voice. It was if certain disadvantages weren't corrected.
Okay,
there
certain
would be
disadvantages weren't corrected.
Yeah, so just that word is quite a...
It's toxic. And
toxic word.
The link to The Voice is that she's one of the designers of The Voice, of course. But intifada is an Arab word. Its literal translation is shake or tremor, but the way it's commonly used is that it is race-based terrorism. It's perpetrated by Arab Palestinians to kill Jews. That's what an intifada is. And at its peak, it involves such things as suicide bombers, putting on a suicide vest, going onto a civilian bus, blowing it up, killing women, children, innocent civilians.
So for the Jewish community, that word is quite not as a toxic word.
So just to be clear, Rita, she used the comment referring to disadvantages.
Yeah. Not saying about...
Not The Voice. Okay, my mistake. So clearly linking whatever might happen in Indigenous communities to a threatened intifada.
It's almost threatening race-based terrorism for Australia, because that's what it is.
I'm sure Marshall Langton did not mean that, but Marsha, that was a very unfortunate word to be throwing around in the context of Indigenous Australians. Coming up, thank you, David Adler. As always, great to chat to you.